This is a quick video explaining how to break down the question in regards to the visual arts. Each of you would have received this worksheet. Please download it from Google Classroom into your own drive, into your visual arts theory folder. The first thing we need to understand is that all questions have three particular elements in it. The first element that you always need to identify is the instruction word. And what we do with that is we usually circle it. The second element that we always have in a visual arts question is the topic word or words. And we underline them. The third word that we usually have in a visual arts question is the focus words, and we box them. So you need to be familiar with the system of circle, underline, and box. Instruction words. Basically, instruction words are description words that help you, or that tell you how you should be answering the question. Now, I have also given you in Google Classroom a worksheet of different instruction questions and what it's actually asking you to do. So for instance, the word explain. So if a question starts with the word explain, what it's asking you to do is to explain how and why certain things happen. To discuss means to bring up some points and to discuss the pros and cons of these aspects. Topic words. These words are basically keywords that are connected to syllabus structures. And the two syllabus structures that we are familiar with at this stage are the conceptual framework and all its agencies and the frames. So you know what the agencies are. So if you see the agency words in the question, that's when you can underline those topic words. But in regards to the frames, it can be a little bit more complex than just subjective, cultural, structural, or postmodern. Sometimes you need to be very aware and sensitive of the keywords used for each of those frames so you can identify what the question is asking you to reference or what frame the question is asking you to reference. Previously, I have given you basic word banks for the subjective, cultural, and structural frame. I ask you to take that home and I ask you to start thinking about what these words have in common and just to be familiar with them in general so that you can identify and are able to deconstruct the question easily. Focus words. Now these words are extremely important because these words are basically the necessities of your response. That means these are the attributes, these are the characteristics, these are the things you could say that this question wants you to address specifically. And if you don't address these things, like for instance, the question's asking you, explain the influences of the audience in an artwork. If you don't explain the influences specifically and you just go on and talk to me about the audience's reaction, then there is no way that you can actually, well, first you're not addressing the question specifically, but then there's no way you'll be able to actually achieve anything more than a C because you haven't addressed the specifics of the question. So what the focus word lets you be aware of or alerts you to are what are the specific kinds of information the marker is specifically asking you for. So for example, here is a subjective frame question. We have circled the instruction word, which is how. So you need to explain pretty much. We have identified the words that relate to the subjective frame, the keywords, which are lost, suffering, the death of my grandfather. We're talking about personal experience. We're talking about emotion. And then we have boxed, the focus word. So it's about communicating. So your response needs to ensure that you tell us how this artwork communicates loss. What are the signs and symbols in this artwork that communicates loss and suffering? If you just generally discuss suffering and how everyone's just sad, then you're not going to get better results. You need to tell me how specific things like color, the way the artist has used line, the way the artist has made the people in the artwork look at the audience specifically so that they are pierced with their grief and understand the grief of what they're experiencing at that moment. These are the ideas that need to be revealed in your question, not in your response, sorry. All right, let's try this one. Excuse me. So we have to circle the instruction word, underline the topic words, and box the focus words. I find that it's usually the focus word that's the hardest thing for us to understand and hardest thing for us to key in to ensure that we address the question properly. So we're looking for responses and how they provoke people in an emotional way when we're looking at this artwork. So in this particular case, we'll be looking at how the brutality, how the disfiguration of the person in this particular artwork, how the glaring colors are to remind us of the rawness, the sadness, and the emotional disfigurement of people can experience through violence. Okay, let's look at the cultural frame. So we have circled the instruction word, which is how, and sometimes there could be more than one, which you saw in the other question. We have underlined the topic words, beliefs and values, society. That's important because that's connecting to the cultural frame specifically. Then the focus words are reflect of the time. So you need to look at this particular artwork and you need to think about how the way this young child is bathed, the room this child is bathed, and the relationship this child has with its mother, how that reflects the time that it was made, which is, and it's given to you in that question, the late 1800s. So you could easily bring up things like the fact that the running water doesn't exist yet, that it's a rather gentle and intimate experience, hands-on experience, as the mother has to tenderly, literally wipe down the child. And then you can talk about how it's an activity done indoors, in a cozy room, and here we have the cultural frame again. And I want you to have a go to look for the instruction word, the topic words, and the focus words. So we have here how, the topic word social attitudes, and the focus word is represent progress. So how does this artwork represent any ideas or demonstrates ideas of moving on in society? And in this particular case, we're talking about the machine and engineering in regards to progress. We're talking about how man is super strong, is now conquering nature and basically, conquering this machine and dictating what it needs to do. So we're talking really about the industrial era and man moving on to a machine world filled with machines. And here is the structural frame. The instruction word here is describe. So another thing to take into consideration is the instruction word isn't always right at the beginning. The frame which is being referenced here, the topic words, is the structural qualities. That's kind of obvious. But the next thing for you to understand is the focus word is 3. You cannot give me 2 structural qualities. You cannot give me 1 structural quality. If you give any less than 3, then you cannot achieve that A. So this is when the focus word becomes extremely important. Let's try this one. What is the instruction word? What are the topic words? And what do you think are the focus words? Explain is the instruction word. The topic words are signs, symbols, and visual codes because those are very much basic keywords used to describe any attributes, any characteristics associated with the structural frame. And the focus word is communicate ideas. This is a nice open question because it just says communicate ideas. So it could be ideas about anything as long as it's connected to the artwork, of course. So ideas about loss, ideas about grief, ideas about pain, ideas about suffering, ideas about not only people pain and suffering, but ideas about animals pain and suffering. So the fact that the focus words are really quite open lends a lot for you to be discussed in this particular artwork.